Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is an illusion and those you love will be the first to go missing. It's available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has garnered great reviews and even loved and endorsed by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassidy, Forbes Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today for Goes Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com on over 30 podcast platforms, including Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also, Anchor FM, iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, Audible, Apple Music, and more. Take us with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. For great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com and check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. T-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, makes great gifts 24/7, 365 for family, friends, students, teachers, and more. Also, for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia for great books like Missing, Once, Wrinkles, also cool t-shirts, great pop sockets, cool hoodies, and great phone cases. Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia. Also, support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, along with PayPal and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Make sure you do so today. He's back by popular demand, and he's always a joy to be on as well, too. I learn a lot from this excellent gentleman. He appears on Coast to Coast, and you can catch him on Wednesday nights, if I'm correct on that one. And he's called The Next Lineage of Seminal Thinkers and the Next Stephen Hawking, according to British TV. And he's author of 7 books, publicist for several musicians, published and lectured on scholarly conferences in 12 different fields, and involved in the $2 billion Moon Prize. We talked about it. And of course, if you want to get all the information, just go to MikeWagnerShow.com and check out Mike Wagner Show interviewing Howard Bloom. And this time, let's put on our thinking caps and let's get in your seats. We're going to talk about the Howard Bloom Institute. And live, ladies and gentlemen, from the Plus Studios in his office here, ladies and gentlemen, the multi-talented and professor Howard Bloom. Howard, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us once again.
Mike, it's a pleasure to see you again.
Oh, it's always a pleasure as well, too. And of course, we had you on before. We last talked about the $2 billion Moon Prize, and I'm sure that went very well. I was very excited about it. And plus, not only that, you also started your own Howard Bloom Institute, and I love to hear more about where it's a truth that any price, including the price of your life. I love that one.
Well, the Howard Bloom Institute started because there's a 62-minute film called The Grand Unified Theory of Howard Bloom. It's won 2 festival prizes so far. And in that film, the filmmaker decided to follow me as I was heading into Manhattan to finalize a will that would leave all of my property to one of my biggest fans so that he could start a Howard Bloom Institute. And the idea was to keep my ideas, my peculiar way of thinking, and believe me, it is peculiar, Mike, alive long after I'm gone. So I started to get emails from people who had seen the film saying, I'd like to be a part of the Howard Bloom Institute. And initially I said, well, there is no Howard Bloom Institute as yet. And then I realized, hey, we have a bunch of these people. If we get them together to work together, then they are a Howard Bloom Institute. So the Howard Bloom Institute is up and running. A whole mess of things have happened with it. Even though we only officially launched about a month ago, and 1 million units of a cryptocurrency, Thought is the name of the cryptocurrency, have been dedicated to the Howard Bloom Institute. I never imagined music as having anything to do with the Howard Bloom Institute, even though, I worked with Michael Jackson, Prince, Bob Marley, Bette Midler, AC/DC, Aerosmith, Kiss, Queen, Run DMC, Billy Joel, Billy Idol, Paul Simon, people like that. And despite that, music is not at the heart of my work, or I haven't thought it was at the heart of my work. But our first piece of music came out about 2 weeks ago, It's called Aeon of Light. It's by someone in Britain named Sean King.
Mm.
I guess he goes under the name of Planet Frog or Hugh Man these days. But so that piece of music came out. It's startling. It's extraordinarily powerful. And there's a second piece of music that's in the works. Back in 2001, I put together a piece of poetry that encapsulates my grand unified theory of everything in the universe, including sex, violence, and the human soul.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my girlfriend persuaded me to read it to the members of the Howard Bloom Institute. And I did. And one of them said, wait, I represent a record company here in Minneapolis. I want to do something with that piece of poetry, something musical. So he introduced it to a group called Airship Caravan, who are very good. And Airship Caravan has written the instrumental music, and now it's about to put in the vocals for our second piece of music. There's a whole lot more. We have our own NFTs, which is something I also never imagined, non-fungible tokens. The first one is based on the most astonishing piece of needlework as art that I have ever seen in my life. It is a Luther Vandross jacket.
Wow.
And I was given this Luther Vandross tour jacket back in the early 1980s, when if you confessed that you were gay, it was the end of your career. And I really mean the end of your career.
Huh.
And this gave people who were gay, like Elton John, George Michael, who was a client of mine, and Luther Vandross, a serious problem. So Luther managed to put out I'm gay and loud and proud statement, not verbally, but in a tour jacket. So the tour jacket is plum purple on the outside with pink piping and pink lettering. And on the inside, it is bright fluorescent pink with gray lettering and gray piping. Wow. And it is an absolute, and Mike, you wouldn't believe it if you saw it. So the NFT company took this and they made a 3D model of it. And their display of the 3D model on the NFT is breathtaking. It's absolutely gorgeous. So that's our first NFT, and I believe that there's a second one involved with Run DMC coming out almost any day now. So those are a few. I mean, we've set up a couple of initiatives. One is an engineer in Scotland is working to turn Garden the Solar System, Green the Galaxy, which is a visual manifesto that I wrote for the future of humanity and the future of life, into a short animation using a university class that's specializing in animation. And we'll see how he makes out, but he's done this twice in the past, and it's always worked out so far. We're just trying for something a little bit more ambitious. Omnology is a field that I laid down a manifesto for, again, in 2001, seems to have been a fruitful year. And I had, at that time, I was stuck in bed. So two people came over to my house. One is my mentor in neuroscience from NYU, and he brought a friend of his from Yale. And I laid out Omnology and said, how do we make this academically, how do we give it academic substance? And they were baffled and they couldn't answer the question.
And what is Omnology for the listening audience out there?
Okay, the Omnology is a discipline for the promiscuously curious. It is a discipline for the omnivorously curious. It's there so that when you're in your sophomore year of college, and let's do something else before that. Omnology derives from omni means all. Logos is knowledge. And it derives from a simple sense I had when I was 10 years old and first got involved in science, that science is about the aspiration to omniscience. And so it is about aspiring to omniscience in some way. So it's there so that when your dad sits you down in your sophomore year of college, and he says to you, look, you're interested in art history, you're interested in neuroscience, and you're interested in film. You got to make up your mind. Are you going to be an art historian? Or are you going to be a neuroscientist? Or are you going to be a filmmaker? Until you make up your mind, you're nothing.
Oh.
And omnology is there so you can say,
you took it from Leland Sklar, I'll tell you that.
right. So
and
that
we
you
love
can,
you, yes.
right. So it's there so you can say, look, Dad, these are my three interests. These are my three passion points. These are the things that drive me, the curiosities that drive me. I will pursue all these curiosities for as long as they stay alive and passionate inside of me. And if new ones come along, I will pursue them too.
Mm-hmm.
And when I and my friends all hit the age of 40, and my friends have no clue as to why they're on this planet, and the women are planning elaborate divorces to find themselves, and the men are buying little red sports cars and picking up blondes and cheating on their wives, all because they don't have a clue as to why they are here on this planet. I will just be coming back from the wilderness of my multiple curiosities for the first time with my first answers. And while my friends feel they are at the end of their lives, I will know I'm at the beginning of mine. So that's what omnology is there for. No matter what your collection of interests, if you follow them with all the passion that's in you, your collection of curiosities, eventually you will become capable of seeing a big picture that no specialist will be able to see. A lot of this started when I was 16 years old. I was working at the world's largest cancer research center over the summer. And they put a real legitimate scientist over my head to make sure that I didn't break too many test tubes and I didn't damage too many multi-million-dollar photospectrometers. And he took me to his office for the first time. And his office was a windowless cubicle, but it had a desk built into the wall that was about 6 feet long. And on the left of that desk were 3 stacks of books. On the right of that desk were another 3 stacks of books. All the books were in German. And this scientist, Phil Fish, had been trying for 3 years to synthesize just one complex molecule. And he said, you see those books on the right? Those are the books I've finished to be able to synthesize that molecule, this molecule. See the books on the left? Those are the books I have yet to read before I can synthesize this molecule. And in other words, he was going to be doing this for 5 years of his life, one molecule. And I realized that is not the kind of science I want to do. Phil Fish is digging the equivalent of a hole in the ground for a prairie dog. And in the process of digging it, he has cut himself off from all the light. And all he can see, if he can see anything at all, is the darkness and the earthen walls around him. That is not what I want to do. I want to be able to fly over the landscape of all of the sciences and use the specializations as pixels in a big picture. And if you follow your multiple curiosities, you too, by the time you're 40, will begin to come up with a vision of the big picture that contributes to science, because specialists like Phil Fish, can only exist if they have questions to pursue. And the people who come up with the questions are the omnologists, the people who fly over the landscape of all of the scientists, like Charles Darwin did, like Leonardo da Vinci did, and see the big picture and bring it back to the rest of us. From that big picture come the new set of questions for the next generation of specialists to dig in. So omnology is one of our major projects, and Kepler Space University in Florida has asked us to put together a 4 to 6 week course on omnology. So that's our toehold in academia. The Phi Beta Kappa chapter in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul, is interested in making that course available to their people as well. And the ultimate goal, the program is being run by Cheyenne G, who's a research scientist, who has been an omnologist since she was 5 years old, but had no name for it, and as a consequence was just considered an oddball, even in her own mind. And if she had had that term, it would have validated her. It would have justified her when she was 5. So her goal is to ultimately get down to 5-year-olds.
Wow.
With this approach. So there's so those are 2 projects: the Garden the Solar System, Green the Galaxy, and omnology. There's another one that I plan to get off the ground in January And it is saving Western civilization, saving the
Really?
values of Western civilization. Why? Because every system of belief that grabs hold of our idealism makes the claim that it is going to lift the poor and the oppressed. But the Western system has done that more than any other system in the history of the planet. And what do I mean? If you had been the poorest paid worker in England in 1850, you would have earned a seventh of what the poorest paid worker earns today. In other words, the poorest paid worker in London earns what an entire tenement full of Irish dock workers earned in 1850.
Wow.
If you've been born in the Western system in 1850, your life expectancy would have been 38.5 years. If you've been born in the Western system in 2000, your life expectancy would have been 78.5 years. In other words, we more than doubled the human lifespan with the Western system. We added 40 more years to the average lifespan. If you took a Stanford Binet IQ test from 1916, the first year it was administered, and gave it to 100 random kids on the street, kids who've allegedly been shallowed and dumbed down by the internet, their average IQ would measure at marginal genius at 135. In other words, we've added 35 IQ points to the average kid since 1916.
Wow.
And if you've been born in either in the Western system in 1650 or in one of those lovely indigenous tribes that lives in harmony with nature and at peace with its fellow man, your odds of dying a violent death at the hands of a fellow human being would have been 10 times what they are today. In other words, we have increased the peace in the world by a factor of 10. So if our great-great-grandparents could add 40 years to our lifespan, then surely we owe another 40 years to our great-great-grandkids. If our great-great-grandparents could add 35 points to our IQ, then surely we owe another 35 points to our great-great-grandkids. If our great-great-grandparents could increase the peace in the world by a factor of 10, then surely we owe our great-grandkids increasing the peace by another factor of 10. But to do these things, we have to avoid destroying the system that has produced this. And what is the Western system? The Western system, this is in my book, The Genius of the Beast, a radical revision of capitalism. The Western system is a balance between three elements that are always pulling against each other. And one is government. You know, government builds things like the internet and roadways. Second is private enterprise. And right now, private enterprise is giving us our Mars program, thanks to Elon Musk, that NASA cannot give us, has not been able to give us. And the third element is the protest industry. And the protest industry is a self-correction device. And the protest industry has been around as long as the Industrial Revolution. It came to life in the 1760s as a movement against slavery. And by 1806, it had abolished slavery in England, not in the United States, but in England. So we need these three elements working against each other. Now, China is trying an experiment. Under Deng Xiaoping in 1980, China adopted the Western system with its three elements pulling against each other. And now Xi Jinping is trying to bring that back to a Marxist-Leninist socialist model. And so he is keeping private enterprise. He is more than keeping government. He's beefing it up. But he's getting rid of the protest industry. So China is going to be, for the next 20 years, a great experiment in whether you can have a culture that's as vigorous as Western culture without a protest industry, without a self-correction device.
Wow.
So the Saving Western Civilization project, I'm going to try to kick off in January. Volunteers for that project include David Patterson, former governor of New York State, Harry Hamlin, the founder of, a nuclear fusion company, and also the actor who was voted the sexiest man alive in 1987 by People magazine. He's best known for his role as Perseus in Clash of the Titans, and several other people. They're anxious to get into this. So those are our basic projects, aside from whatever we do with keeping my work alive. And I write between 1 and 3 pieces a week, which are put up in our newsletter and on the website. So if you go to howardbloom.institute, you can find these new pieces that I spill out. I mean, I get a homework assignment every Wednesday from Coast to Coast, the highest rated overnight talk radio show in North America, because I do a 3.5-minute news segment at 1:06 in the morning Eastern time every Wednesday night. And I never know what they're going to assign to me. And they give me about 5 hours notice. And then I have to research it and become the world's greatest expert on whatever topic it is, or to the best of my ability, I have to try to do that and write a script. So that script always comes out. Meanwhile, I've been working on my next book, which probably won't come out until 2023, but it's The Case of the Sexual Cosmos, Everything You Know About Nature Is Wrong. And as I finish the drafts of the chapters, those have gone up in the newsletter and on my YouTube channel as well.
That's really interesting. What's the book about, by the way? Just not give away too much. So
the book is about the fact that there are some assumptions in science that are absolutely untrue. And one is the law of least effort. Nature goes about everything in the thriftiest manner possible. She does not. Nature is wildly indulgent. We think we are the source of consumerism, materialism, and vain display. We are not. Materialism, consumerism, and vain display have existed in nature ever since nature invented sex about 1 billion years ago. Look at a peacock's tail. That's the arch example. That is waste, indulgence, and vain display. That is materialism, consumerism, and vain display. But it is useful for females because a male who can possibly have magnificent tail feathers and not get eaten by a hawk, since those tail feathers are just a billboard for hawks, come and get me, is put through a kind of selective sieve before he's able to inseminate the females. So this does the females a favor. They don't have to go out and challenge the woes and griefs of nature. The males can do it on their behalf and then come back with genes that have been proven through use and proven through the greatest difficulties you can possibly imagine, like that enormous tail that makes it almost impossible for you to fly, for God's sakes.
Shame on NBC on that one for those peacocks. Yes. Shame on NBC.
Yes, exactly. So the basic premise of the book is that the law of least effort doesn't work. And the law of entropy doesn't work in this cosmos. And this shows you how materialism, consumerism, waste, and vain display have been alive in nature for at least 1 billion years. But there's a fascinating, amazing story behind it. So that's what that book is about. I'm working on 3 chapters on Anne Boleyn right now because her relationship with King Henry VIII was very expensive for everybody.
Wow.
Both for King Henry, and it was expensive for her. But this is a strange thing that sex is all about. It's producing one of a kinds. It's producing oddballs. And when oddballs sense a commonality, that's when they get together. That's when they fall in love with each other. That's when they mate. And the result of this mating between Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII was not just Anne Boleyn's beheading, which was an unfortunate consequence. It was the birth of a daughter. And that daughter was Queen Elizabeth, the first Queen Elizabeth. And Queen Elizabeth was so consequential to England that we refer to an Elizabethan era. I mean, it produced, among other things, a whole new kind of theater. And the town fathers in London wanted to shut that new form of theater down because they said it was all about sex and violence. And young people were going to these theatrical displays and were being exposed to sex and violence, and it was going to corrupt their morals. So the town fathers put out an absolute edict that this entire theater industry should be shut down. But the Queen, Elizabeth, loved the new theater. And she kept it alive and open despite the town fathers of London. Why? Because Queen Elizabeth was an oddball. So you put the right oddball in the right circumstances, which only happens 1 in a billion times or something like that. And all of a sudden, there's the equivalent of a tornado in the forces of history.
Wow.
And things change. So that's what these 3 chapters that are the concluding chapters of the book are about. But I research every sentence I write, Mike. And sometimes it can take me several days just to research a sentence or a paragraph.
Huh, that's fascinating. I wish I had the time in the world to research my sentences and paragraphs. It's like I'm only allowed maybe about 5 or 10 seconds. That's how fast it's been for me.
Right. And it's hard for me to find the time too, because I'm running 4 space groups, including the $2 billion Moon Prize group that you alluded to. And we just pulled off a meeting between David Patterson, who is the former governor of New York State, Robert Walker, who is the former head of the House Science Committee. Robert is a Republican. David is a Democrat. And Bill Nelson, who is the head of NASA. And the idea was to open our door to NASA, or to open NASA's door to us. This group is very much alive and kicking. And so are the other groups. I'm running too many groups right now.
Well, that's a good thing too, because I remember we were around, we had a great discussion about the space race and everything else. It was between Elon Musk and Richard Branson as well too. It makes you wonder who's the third person going to be. Maybe it could be you. Who knows?
No, the third person it's the second person. Branson has basically dropped out of the running.
Oh, he did.
He hasn't dropped out, but he's way behind. Jeff Bezos.
That was the guy.
Company. Yeah, he's way behind. So this is a race between Elon Musk and China. And Elon Musk is disturbed by, well, look, Joe Biden, who's my president, I'm a Democrat, and I very much support Joe Biden. But Joe Biden put on an event a month or 2 ago celebrating electric cars. And he had General Motors and he had Chrysler, but he did not have Elon Musk. How can you not have Elon Musk at an event that celebrates electric cars?
And he's one that revolutionized the electric car, the Tesla.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
Oh my gosh, wow.
And when GM tried to put out the electric car, it failed. And yet, because Joe Biden is so union oriented, he locked Elon Musk out of this event because Elon Musk is not unionized. And then Elon Musk apparently pointed out on Twitter that his workers are paid more than the unionized workers at General Motors.
Really?
So America right now, NASA, when it comes to human spaceflight, is totally dysfunctional. Totally. And only Elon Musk is getting Americans into space on American vehicles. There was an 11-year gap when we couldn't do that. Now, NASA helped fund Elon to develop his Dragon capsule, but NASA couldn't have pulled it off by itself. Now NASA is developing, or Elon is developing, a Starship. What's a Starship? In the past, we've taken about 3 astronauts at a time to space in small capsules, including the Dragon capsule, which is built for a maximum, I believe, of 7. The Starship will carry 100 passengers and all of their luggage to space and ultimately to Mars. That's a radically different scale, and it changes the relationship between life and the cosmos. And what do I mean by that? When you take if I took you to space, Mike,
I go.
yes, you don't realize it, but I'm taking an entire ecosystem. Why? Because you are 100 trillion cells, but 90 trillion of those cells don't even claim to be you. They're bacterial colonies. They're bacterial colonies garrisoning your nose and your throat against outside invaders. They're bacterial colonies in your gut that actually digest the food that you eat and make your vitamins B and vitamin K. You can't live without them. So I'm taking a large community of communities, a community that's 100 trillion cells, that's you, the communities of 7 trillion cells apiece that are the bacterial colonies that live inside you and allow you to continue to live. I'm taking an ecosystem to space. We have to garden and green the place. We have to take plants to space. We have to have farming in space. Ultimately, we have to build parks in space. And all of that is consistent with a vision laid out by a guy named Gerard O'Neill at Princeton University in the 1980s, who mapped out how we could have gardens and parks in space. We owe it to the rest of the living species on Earth. Why? Because once upon a time, 3.85 billion years ago, this planet was a poison pill of stone and the mother not just of climate change, but the mother of climate catastrophe. Just if you had been on the surface of this planet 3.85 billion years ago, every 3 hours, your temperature would have shot up 88 degrees. And you would have been exposed to this poisonous stuff called radiation. And every 3 hours, your temperature would have plunged again 88 degrees, and you would have been exposed to something equally toxic called darkness. And yet, in the environment of smoldering volcanoes, of a solar system that circles the core of the galaxy every 235 million years, going through all kinds of dangers that even Frodo the Hobbit would find damning. Dangers like clouds of galactic fluff, streams of gamma rays. This is the planet of climate change beyond belief. We've had 2 ice ages in which even the equator has frozen over to half a mile of ice and snow in height. Even the equator. We've had periods of time where dinosaurs have lived at the South Pole because it has been so warm. That's nature that's produced these things. It's not tailpipes and smokestacks, it's nature. And yet life dared to get a toehold on this poison pill of stone in the face of all of these catastrophes and used and was able to harvest some of them. For example, remember that stream of radiation that hit you for 3 hours a day? Well, life took that radiation, kidnapped it, and brought it into the metabolic process of life. And we know what they did as photosynthesis. They took these insubstantial things called photons, parcels of light, and grabbed hold of them and used them in their chemical apparatus. Life has survived and thrived in this continuous concatenate of catastrophes through daring, through audaciousness, through harvesting every form of garbage and threat, every form of poison, and turning it into a treat, from taking every wasteland and turning it into a field of waving grain. Nature has done that through audacity, not through thrift, not through being miserly, not through withdrawal from advancement, through steady advancement, through what we call progress. And that word has been in hot debate for 40 years now, progress. Because those who want us to move backwards technologically and want us to get rid of 7 billion people on the planet so that 100 million can live in peace and harmony with the petting zoo of nature. The petting zoo of nature has never existed. Nature has never been a petting zoo. Lions, jaguars, to feed their kids, they kill. That's monstrous, and that's nature. And what we are doing is the precise equivalent to what cyanobacteria, green-blue algae, were doing 2 billion years ago when they invented photosynthesis. Be daring, look up, take what comes down from above and bundle it, use it as a resource. That's the imperative nature is operated according to, and that's the imperative we must operate according to, which means nature welcomes our new technologies. And nature welcomes the fact that we have in the Western system a protest industry, which can work to, quote, save the planet, unquote. That's a vital part of our system. So we, the Chinese, we're all working toward green goals right now. We're working to protect nature, but the Western system invented the anti-slavery movement. The Western system invented the anti-colonialism movement. The Western system invented the peace movement. The Western system invented the environmental movement, the movement to save the planet. And China has never done such a thing. In fact, it would not be allowed. If it doesn't these days come from the mind of Xi Jinping, it's illegitimate and forbidden.
Huh. Rather interesting. And of course, you talk about these subjects. It makes you think. It's like, I'd love to take a class with you in the Howard Bloom Institute. I like to see it in your curriculum.
Well, that would be neat. So, so that's moving along, and I'm glad the Howard Bloom Institute exists. It heartens me because I told you this story before, Mike, in all probability. But when I was 10 years old, I was a lost kid in Buffalo, New York. Nobody wanted to have anything to do with me. The other kids didn't want to have anything to do with me unless they were picking on me and beating me up. And my parents didn't want to have anything to do with me. Lord knows why. And one day, this book appeared in my lap, and it said the first two rules of science are these: the truth at any price, including the price of your life, and look at things right under your nose as if you've never seen them before, and then proceed from there. And in terms of rule number one, the truth at any price in your life, gave the example of Galileo. And for the second law, look at things right under your nose, gave the example of Anton von Leeuwenhoek, the man who invented the microscope. So two people reached out across a distance of 350 years and saved me. So my obligation, ever since I was 10 years old, has been to reach out across the next 350 years and save the next poor kid along the line. And that's really the ultimate goal of the Howard Bloom Institute.
And you also got some great members on board too, like Jeff Bridges as well too. He's excellent. Peter Garrelson, and he also got Martin Boljewald and Edgar Coons and Lisa Coleman from Prince as well too. I found that really fascinating. Right. James Burke and more. And oh my gosh, you got an amazing bunch there.
Yeah, I was astonished because I would never have dared approach these people about a Howard Bloom Institute. But the people who are making the Howard Bloom Institute happen, the core team, did reach out to these people, and the result was astonishing. So we have Governor David Patterson, the former governor of New York State. We have Robert Walker, the former head of the House Science Committee. We have James Burke, who's the creator of 7 BBC TV series, including his most famous one, Connections, which is just utterly mind-blowing. And if you can ever get your hands on it, watch it. It will change the way you see the world around you. Richard Foreman, a MacArthur Genius Award winner, who's the god of avant-garde theater. Martin Boljewald, who you just mentioned, but Martin wrote the textbook on quantum cosmology.
Huh.
A bunch of people from the information sciences, like scientists from all over the world. We have people from India, London, Vienna, and Spain, all over the place. So it's been fairly amazing to watch it. I give an example I think it's in Einstein, Michael Jackson, and Me, A Search for Soul in the Power Pits of Rock and Roll, the book that's right behind me, my latest book. So I give you the example of, imagine that you and I are in your living room, and I go out to your kitchen, and I take an entire container of Morton salt, and I take an 8-ounce glass of water, and I pour as much of the container as I can into the water and stir it. So when I bring that glass of water out to you in the living room, it looks like, I ask you what's in it. You say, what do you mean? It's water, because it looks just like water. But if I give you just one crystal of salt and you drop it into that water, all of a sudden, all of the salt that's in solution in that water discovers a common home and plumbs onto that salt crystal, and you end up with a salt crystal 3 inches wide.
Wow.
In your glass. So that's called the liquid that contains all of that salt is called a supersaturated solution. And the crystal that you dropped in is a seed crystal. And the Howard Bloom Institute is turning out to be a seed crystal dropped into a supersaturated solution.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. You also got some other people on board too, like Alex Watler, Christopher Cook, Andrew Hacker, and Josh Leet, and Stuart Atkinson, Carrie Anderson, and more. And just amazing people on your team as well too. I mean, you got a lot of people on board.
Well, it's an amazing group of people. And we'll see what happens from here, because I'm still getting notes from people saying, how can I contribute to this? How can I be a part of it? So we're setting up an activist board for people who want to help make this happen in some way. So they can meet roughly 3 times a year or 4 times a year, and we can take on practical challenges. But right now, I'm trying to limit the goals to omnology, to saving Western civilization, and to guarding the solar system, greening the galaxy, because you need to concentrate your forces in order to make things happen.
And also, what about the space race? Would you also put there as well too?
Yeah, the space race is very important, because if China wins the space race, and there's a good chance that it will, because we are not sufficiently focused, because NASA is dysfunctional. Only Elon Musk is carrying us forward. If we lose that space race, it means that the major paradigm on which all social systems will model themselves will be a paradigm that's autocratic, dictatorial, and totalitarian, that does not allow freedom of thought and freedom of speech, that follows the Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin model. And I would not want to live in a society like that, because all I have are my thoughts and my ability to express them. So I would be canceled out of existence in a society like that. And I would imagine an awful lot of the people watching your show feel the same way. They don't want to be canceled out by a Xi Jinping style or Vladimir Putin style society.
And of course, my big fear is being canceled as well too. So it's just like it's among just about everybody. And of course, you also got music, and we don't want that canceled. And just a lot of great music out there. And of course, you also allow like any contributions or people submissions or anything like that, or in terms of music, what or it's just like tell us more about that.
Well, if there are any other people who want to make music, that's welcome. About 20 years ago, a group got in touch with me, I think from Germany, and they wanted to name themselves the Lucifer Principle, which is the name of my first book, The Lucifer Principle, The Scientific Expedition into the Forces of History. And I said yes. I mean, it's a form of flattery. They're a dark heavy metal band. I'm not sure they still exist. It's hard to tell, since things stay alive on the internet long after they've actually died. But yeah, I welcome anybody who's got a contribution to make, or who finds that this work of mine is liberating. I mean, there's a tiny little story. In the days when I was working at a cafe called the Chocolateria, and was writing all of my books there, there was an attractive woman sitting near me in her 50s. And after I put in 3 to 4 hours of work and needed a break, I asked her who she was. Well, she turns out to be an editor from, I believe, Oxford University Press.
Wow.
She's the online editor. And she said, "What field are you trained in?" And I'd never been asked that question before, Mike. And I thought about it for a second, and then I said, I haven't been trained in any field. That's been my greatest gift, that I haven't been trained in any field. Because when somebody trains you, they train you to think the way they do. They train you to carry out the programs that were their programs and to finish them. They put blinders on your eyes. And fortunately for me, no one has ever tried to do that to me. And the result is I don't have the kinds of blinders that other people are stuck with. So it's been a huge gift to have no training, and yet to be able to contribute articles and lectures in 12 different scholarly fields, for everything from quantum physics and cosmology up to evolutionary biology, governance, and information science.
That's rather interesting. And what else can we expect from you in the Howard Bloom Institute, and what you're looking to add, especially come up in 2022 and beyond, Howard?
Well, it's a good question. You can see the Omnology project move forward by the end of 2022. The Omnology course should be up and running. The Save Western Civilization project should be up and running by then. Garden the Solar System, Bring the Galaxy, the animation, should be almost finished at that point. And those are our 3 basic projects, unless I think I'm missing something. God knows what it is. But that's what we really have to concentrate on. And meanwhile, I will finish The Case of the Sexual Cosmos. Everything you know about nature is wrong. And I will find a publisher. And hopefully by the end of 2022, there will be a publisher in place, and that book will be on the verge of being available. And I will have to start work on my next book, which is The Grand Unified Theory of Everything in the Universe, including Sex, Violence, and the Human Soul, where I try to pull together the elements of all of my books.
That is so amazing. Definitely looking forward to having on Howard Bloom once again. Howard Bloom, the Professor Howard Bloom of the Howard Bloom Institute and the Mike Wagner Show, and called Next Lineage of Seminal Thinkers. Also, author of 7 books, published for several musicians, and published lectures. Just a bunch. And Howard, very big thank you for your time as always. You always amaze me and learn a lot from you. And once again, tell us, where can we find you? What's your website? And how people contact? Where can people purchase or check out your works?
Well, it's http:// and here's the real gist of the matter: howardbloom.net. Howard Bloom is all one word, and Bloom is spelled with 2 O's. So Howard Bloom, wait, it's howardbloom.institute. Sorry, there is a howardbloom.net. That's my personal website. But you can find out more on howardbloom.institute. You can find out tons of different information on each of those, actually. And if you find any of these projects interesting, go to the contact page on howardbloom.institute and let my team know that you're interested, and we'll figure out some way. I will get you the newsletter if you want it, which means you'll get my writing as it comes out of the laptop. And we'll see if we can involve you in some of these projects, if that's what interests you. Again, it's howardbloom.institute.
That's certainly amazing. We will do so. Once again, Howard, very big thank you for your time. It's always great to hear from you, and looking forward to having you again soon. And we definitely love to have you back on. Just keep us up to date. And you're always welcome on the Mike Wagner Show anytime, Howard.
That's terrific. Have a great night, Mike.